No Man's Sky is in a great place right now, and with the Beyond update, the game continues to grow and evolve, way past what so many of us ever thought it was capable of. I released a video already showing just how far the game has evolved since its initial release, and combining this now incredible game with an even greater community, this game is absolutely stunning and a steal for its current price. I know No Man's Sky isn't the only game to manage a comeback like this, but it's one of the few games to make it this far entirely for free. However, that doesn't mean the game is perfect and that there's not room for improvement. The game obviously still suffers from bugs and glitches, especially after the launch of Beyond, and it's lacking polish in some areas. Therefore, I wanted to dedicate this video to showing and explaining some of my suggestions for the game. Now, I'm no game developer, so I don't exactly know what is doable in terms of the engine and power of consoles, but seeing as how Hello Games has already stated that they're going to keep working on the game as long as they still have the passion and believe there are things to add. Well, I figure I might as well make my suggestions and ideas now, and maybe one day Hello Games will see this and consider adding some of these features to the game. With that said, here are 10 things I think No Man's Sky should implement in the game to reach an even wider audience, as well as get even closer to the unachievable title of being perfect. With my 10th reason being one that would truly take No Man's Sky to new heights. The first feature I'd love to see implemented in No Man's Sky is the ability to fly freighters. These colossal interstellar beasts come in 3 types and a range of classes, with the most sought after freighter being called a Star Destroyer by much of the community. At the moment, these behemoths mostly just serve as mobile space bases that you can upgrade and command your fleet from. But I think Hello Games should make these bad boys pilotable at some point down the line. Now, I'm not asking for anything crazy where we are able to warp drive through enemies like in The Last Jedi, but it'd be nice to be able to control its direction, speed, and maybe even land close to a planet's surface, similar to what was seen in Halo 3 set pieces.
Take cover!
Along with being able to feel the power and weight of a freighter, it'd also be nice to be able to control its cannons and weaponry for freighter versus freighter engagements, similar to the kind of mechanics seen in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Since as we all know, ship combat in that game was one of the best parts and could really feel epic at times with the right music. So on the topic of being able to fight other freighters, as well as pilot and land them, we need to be able to destroy them as well. One of the key aspects of making space combat feel a lot more immersive, and allowing players to understand the size and scope of battles they're in, is seeing the biggest ships be destructible or get destroyed in the background. Looking at the Mass Effect games, or even various cutscenes in other games, it's always amazing seeing and hearing the sight and sound of a Titan in the sky finally being brought down. This is one of the coolest aspects in Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I think it'd be a great addition here, to bring in even more fans of other space combat focused games. In fact, No Man's Sky would greatly benefit from improved space battles. While in No Man's Sky, you can have your massive freighter and 30 frigates at your command, the enemies you fight are mostly just pirates and other small ships. It'd be nice to have some fleet versus fleet options so we could truly live out our space battle fantasies. Imagine if you could warp into a new system and immediately your armada has to face a pirate's fleet, and every ship begins breaking off to engage in their own small battles. Of course, for this to happen, the ship AI would have to greatly improve, and the amount of damage that friendly frigates and freighters do would also have to increase. That way you wouldn't be the only deciding factor in who wins the battle, and instead you would come down to the size difference in the fleets, the types of ships, the upgrades you have, and even your battle tactics and intelligence. This addition could also add real and dangerous threats to you and your fleet, and give even more incentives for you to fully upgrade them. Along with this, it could be cool as well to fight enemy freighters, and finally add in shipboarding, so once shields are down on the enemy vessel, you can fly into the hangar and fight the NPCs in the inside, as well as destroy parts of the interior, based on if you want to destroy or capture it. After this, it may sound like space combat would be as good as it could be, but I think one more addition that could really improve it, and combat in general, is new spaceships. Right now in the game there are a multitude of starships, with different classes and even specialized roles, but other than that, there are no other types of spaceships that you can fly. Something I know for a fact I'm not alone on wanting is more ships added to the game, especially multi-crew ones. Imagine if new starships were added and required 1 to 7 other players to help commandeer it. This feature would also allow the game to directly compete with Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen, both of which have implemented this feature in an amazing way. And by introducing these vessels, it would encourage players to play in groups more often and give already existing groups just one more reason to hop into No Man's Sky. Now I know the first thing everyone thinks is that there'd only be one pilot and then everyone else is just playing a turret simulator. And while that's true to an extent, this ability could also allow the vessel to serve as a troop transport when boarding enemy ships, as well as when landing on planets to invade or infiltrate enemy outposts. Whether you hate or love the Far Cry games, it's no secret that a large part of their success is due to the way they craft their open worlds. With a multitude of missions, locations, and outposts to locate and take over throughout the entirety of the game immediately hooks players who like a sense of accomplishment and progress. As you start the game seeing only enemy establishments, but over time work towards claiming these as your own. While the Far Cry games for me have been mostly hit or miss, one area of the games that has always been fun is taking over the outpost. And I feel No Man's Sky could greatly benefit from this as well. If Hello Games were to handcraft 5 basic outpost designs and make them vary in size and amount of defenses, and then allow their procedural generator to change these slightly before spawning them on planets all over the universe, then this would greatly improve the amount of action to be had on the ground, instead of just sentinel combat. Now I know this game doesn't necessarily have the best combat built in, so there would need to be an entire rework for this to be fun, but just imagine how enjoyable it'd be if you realize that there's a hostile planet that has 5 small bases, 3 outposts, and then 1 or 2 fortresses, and that each one of these has a different difficulty rating. I absolutely love this part in Mass Effect Andromeda, as taking over the one massive Ket base in free play was a ton of fun. Here though, Hello Games could go absolutely crazy and install different guns on these bases, and maybe even MAC cannons that can take out vessels in your fleet, adding even more urgency to take out the anti-aircraft guns first, before calling in support from your fleet, and maybe an orbital strike from your freighter's cannons. Of course, one thing that always made taking over the outpost fun in these games was the incredible variety of tools available to the player. In the addition of outposts, it'd be amazing to get new guns and vehicles added to the game as well. I know we have some mining ledges on the Colossus, but if ground combat becomes a focus in the game, then a large assortment of weaponry needs to be made available to the current vehicles in the game. This would also allow there to be different versions of the current exocraft, focusing on either armor, weapons, or maybe even troop transport. I'd love to refit the Colossus into an armored troop carrier for infiltrating an enemy base, especially since the Colossus looks a lot like the A5 Juggernaut from Star Wars. Moving past the different versions of ground vehicles, getting some actual space guns that are more focused on melting your foes instead of melting rocks would add yet another aspect of the game to grind for. It's no secret, something people love in many modern games is loot and getting better, cooler, and even exotic guns. If No Man's Sky could start small and take the Halo 1 approach by adding in a small amount of guns and giving them basic names like Assault Rifle and Battle Rifle, add their class rating system to those weapons, and even a couple exotic ones that are truly unique and visually impressive, then this would immediately draw in shooting crowds without harming the core of the game. Yes, I know that more than likely, this game wouldn't ever have shooting mechanics on par with the other games, but even just basic ones will be enough to spark a lot more interest. And as long as it's playable and decently fun, this would be a game-changing addition, as long as you have something more meaningful than just animals and robots to shoot at. Shooting only robots can be fun in games when done right, but overall, the only current foes to engage with on the ground are sentinels and some animals, which can be rather dull and boring at times. Now with the Beyond expansion, there are other NPCs that will roam around on planets, but I'd like to see this taken to much greater heights, along with obviously having NPCs to fill up my previously mentioned enemy bases. How about having groups of NPCs wander around, that may be friends or foes? Have raiders randomly show up to try and steal from you while you're in your base or walking about, as well as even have NPCs that are doing their own missions, or hunts that you can either interact with or simply watch and observe. Basically it'd be great to take that dynamic and alive feeling that the Beyond expansion introduced and run wild with it. I still see complaints in the comments all the time about some worlds still feeling too empty, but I also understand that some people want to maintain that idea of being the first explorer on certain planets. But it'd be nice for them to occasionally have other NPCs roaming around and doing their own activities. Imagine how much more alive it'd feel if you were just walking about exploring and then suddenly you enter into dialogue with the bounty hunter after you stopped his men from invading a city. And speaking of cities, I won't lie, I'm a huge sucker for futuristic looking cities. That's one of the main components I'm looking forward to in Cyberpunk 2077. It's something I spent a ton of time doing in the Mass Effect games, and something I watch hours of on YouTube when people explore ArcCorp in Area 18. Obviously, I don't think No Man's Sky could ever replicate something of that size, but I think they could easily make alien cities that look massive and seem alive, but instead are mostly hollow buildings with scripted background events taking place similar to the hub worlds of Mass Effect 2. If No Man's Sky managed to ever make cities, or at least towns the size of something in Borderlands, it would make the world seem dramatically more alive, and feel as if this universe truly is a shared living space of many other life forms. This could also open up the ability to ally yourself with specific cities and do missions or tasks for them, to gain reputation and upgrade a city's defenses, in case of attacks by raiders or even an opposing faction. Something that is constantly seen on many No Man's Sky videos, and still brought up on comments time and time again, is the actual addition of factions. There are already a couple factions in the game, but they never engage in ground or space combat with one another, at least not to the extent that many had hoped for from seeing the initial trailers. I would like to see players be able to just watch factions duke out massive battles from afar, or get involved and pick sides, and lead an ongoing war throughout their time with the game, as they help certain factions defeat others, similar to the Empire and Stormcloaks in Skyrim, without ever being able to truly kill off one side. Aligning yourself with a faction has been a fan favorite feature in Bethesda games, and I think Hello Games could benefit from this as well. You could gain reputation, trust, rewards, and more from being an ally, and even move up in rank, similar to my last and final want in the game. By this name, what I mean is implementing a true player-driven economy and society. This idea would allow players to form actual empires and take on the galactic roles they wish to have. I think this idea would also make the game more accessible than ever. So basically my want here is for the game to introduce a launch center that connects all parts of the game. As soon as you finish the tutorial and set up your first base, one of the first structures you would build would be this universal mission board, where you can accept jobs and missions from other players. This could be simple tasks such as gathering, farming, and trading, all the way to more complex jobs such as combat-focused ones. If a player is really wealthy in the game and has several fleets and freighters, provided future updates allow that, then maybe the player puts up a job looking for infantry volunteers for a base takeover, or pilots for fleet versus fleet combat, or even just crewmates to hire or interact with during planetary wars. In my idea for how this would be implemented, players signing up for jobs can now finally put the parts of the game that they enjoy the most. Want to gather and mine for money? Go to the board. Farm plants and animals? Go to the board. In the mood for some outpost missions with friends? Go to the board. Want to spend the day in epic all-out war space battles? You guessed it, go to the board. After completing a request here as well, you will earn money, rewards, and of course go up in rank, allowing higher ranked individuals to bargain for better deals, as well as allowing employers to select only high-level players if it's for a task that requires more experience and skill. What I'm hoping this suggestion would achieve is allowing players to still experience and participate in all the game has to offer, but I always see how some people don't have it in their heart to do the grind to amass a large fleet, or the creativity to build an awesome base. Now you can earn the money and resources you need for these tasks by playing how you want, and if you want something else like a custom-built base, find a person at the board who specializes in building. This player-driven economy and universe could allow No Man's Sky to become everyone's sky. Are all 10 of these requests needed in the game? No, of course not. No Man's Sky is great now as it is, but we already know Sean Murray has stated that they still plan on updating and expanding it for the foreseeable future. These 10 additions are simply ideas that I think if implemented would greatly benefit the game in terms of its combat, world building, and ability to appeal to an even wider player base. This gaming community are incredible, and I'm really having a blast playing it right now. And while I know it seems like a lot of my requests have been combat focused, that's because I feel like combat is the only area in No Man's Sky that's truly lacking. Everything else is great, and I would just like to see it continue evolving and expanding, so that one day, with the help of these additions, No Man's Sky could turn into a game that's not just part of a generation, but rather helps define it, and close in on that title of perfection. Well, that wraps up this video on 10 things I'd like to see introduced or improved upon in No Man's Sky. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of my ideas, and let me know ones of yours as well. If you'd like to contact me about anything No Man's Sky related or otherwise, as well as stay updated on my videos, then go and follow my Twitter account linked below. And if you want awesome perks such as behind the scenes of my videos, involvement in the creation progress, mentions in the credits such as seen here, and much more, then go check out my Patreon down below, and find a tier that fits you best. With that said, let's chat down in the comments, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, be sure to leave a like, share the video, and hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you all on the next Shepherd Gaming video. Keyless Ally.